Australia's iconic Uluru, or more famously known as Ayer's Rock, will be permanently off limits to climbers from tomorrow. And huge crowds of people have been climbing the rock while they still can.
Now, the sandstone monolith is listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and dominates the landscape in the arid centre of Australia.
And it has long been celebrated for its incredible views at dusk and sunrise, and as a peak to conquer for climbers across the world.
But the indigenous Anangu Australians see it as a sacred ancestral site to be respected. They have spent decades seeking a climbing ban. They say visitors have been polluting the area and eroding the rock's surface.
And that led to a decision in 2017 to ban the climb, prompting a mad rush to scale the rock before tomorrow. But some warn against the final rush to climb the rock, asking potential visitors to reconsider their motivations and to respect the Aboriginal culture.
I guess it's an emotional day. It's, happiness is, I guess, majority of the feeling, knowing that people were, no longer going to be disrespecting the rock and the culture, and being safe. Also, a bit of sadness knowing that there's some elders along this journey who aren't here to witness it.
Well, the climbing ban on Uluru, which takes effect tomorrow, has brought about questions on responsible tourism. And for more insight, we're speaking to Gary Bowerman, Director of Check-in Asia and Analyst for Travel and Tourism. He joins us live from Kuala Lumpur. Thanks very much, Gary, for joining us. This climbing ban on Uluru, what do you make of it? Is it better for tourism in the long run?
Hi, good evening. I think it is. It's been, as you mentioned in your intro, it's been a long time coming. Indigenous communities have asked people to self-censor and not to climb Uluru for quite a long time, and now the actual ban is coming in. I think it really taps into this element of people respecting cultural and spiritual significance of the places that we travel to. We're in an era of huge demand for travel, and we have to respect the places that we go to. They're not asking people not to visit. I think that's quite important, just not to climb Uluru. And that makes a big difference, because it's still an area of incredible spiritual significance and a great place to visit and see.
So lots have been said about, ecotourism. What about responsible tourism? Is it too much to ask? Is it already happening, maybe, or could it happen soon, you think?
I think that's a really good question. The tourism industry tends to look at responsible tourism. There's a lot of different bywords. One of the key ones at the moment is to avoid unthinking tourism. So when tourists are traveling, to be aware and to understand the cultural and the historic significances of the places that we travel to, the cultures that we meet, the people that we encounter when we're traveling. Is it happening? I think it is. I think there's a movement towards people understanding and trying to make more of the travel experience and to understand from a local perspective the places that we travel. But as I mentioned before, we are living in an era of mass tourism. We are living in an era of, the word that you often hear is over-tourism. Places are becoming very, very crowded. And at those points, and in particular the most busiest places that we travel to, it's easy for us all to forget the responsibilities that we have when we visit other people's places.
You mentioned they're overcrowded. So how far can tourism be a boon, and what can be done to keep it so then?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, if you look at the way tourism has developed in Asia Pacific over the last 5, perhaps even 10 years, it's become very, very important to economic growth. Governments in the region are looking to tourism, not just to make money, but to create jobs, to give opportunities to local people, and for this to extend beyond just the cities or the main tourism destinations into sort of secondary and tertiary areas of a country, so that you can actually spread some of the benefits of tourism. But at the same time, yeah, we have so many flights jetting in and out of cities. There's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of congestion. The skyways above us are becoming incredibly congested. So there's a huge balance to be met, and I think the coming years will see that. We're going to have to look at ways that we can actually manage demand, because in some areas now, particularly in the areas that we live in Asia Pacific, travel has just become overly dominant.
So we're seeing how tourism has evolved over the years. Back in the day, we had group tours, it sort of evolved into independent travel. We're looking a lot at experiential activities now. If you were to look at tourism in a broad sense, what's the next trend, do you think, in tourism that's going to really take off?
Yeah, good question. You mentioned the word experiential, and that's one of the buzzwords in the industry right now: experiential and aspirational. We've moved. You're right. We've moved from a predominantly packaged, group-based travel industry, which has been facilitated by the internet and low-cost carriers, into more independent travel. People can book and travel and plan their own tours and trips. But both still really are very important. Across Asia, group trips and independent travel coexist side by side. When we're moving towards more aspirational elements, where we're moving into perhaps a personalized era where travel really becomes data-driven, so that your experiences are really, really targeted to the individual traveler. But I think we're a long way away from that. But cities really at the moment are really struggling to deal with demand. And I think that's the next issue. Whether you're traveling as a group or you're traveling independently, there are a lot of people traveling to the most important and popular places. And somehow dealing with that demand will be the biggest issue over the next, perhaps 5 years.
Yeah, it's something that governments certainly have to think about. Thank you very much for speaking to us on this topic. We've been speaking there with Gary Bowerman, Director of Check-in Asia and Analyst for Travel and Tourism. Thanks very much for that.